Hello everyone, Revan619 here. How the devil are you? Today I wanted to go over Saros and my first impressions of him. Saros is a mystic and a psyker that starts with telepath and builds into Pyromancer that joins your party in Dark Heresy. Currently in the alpha, he is a fantastic area damage dealer, he's a fantastic debuff specialist, and he can also give some incredible buffs and stats to the party. He can inflict stuns on the enemy, which make it very easy to follow up and do damage, and he can do all sorts of amazing little things. Looking at some of the stuff that he comes with access to, so he is going to be someone who is built into intelligence and willpower, and there are now lots of checks that are built around those two things. He has special talents where he can turn every buff to law warp to increase his other law skills, so he'll be a bit of your skill monkey when it comes to that, but he'll also be very helpful with your metal and interrogation checks, seeing as he's built to willpower. This version also seems to build with agility to get those stats up there, so he does quite a lot for the party here. Being able to cover both agility, intelligence and willpower is something that's quite useful, but some of his archetype and his abilities that come in here are incredibly good. Like I said, he starts off as the new unique mystic archetype, and he is a sanctioned pyromancer, which is a bit odd because he starts with telekinesis and then specializes into pyromancy, but I'm guessing for the full launch he'll actually be the other way around. But given to his unique background, he gets a special ability called Rhymes Unspoken. This implies that each sanctioned telepath, pyromancer, Sanctic, or biomancer, once that's added, or even diviner, if that comes in too, will actually have different abilities based on this. His ones is Rhymes Unspoken. What this allows him to do is whenever he uses a power, when it starts his next turn, he'll recast that power at no additional cost. And he has a lot of additional things that will come in, such as these powers being reused at higher veil degradation. One of the changes that we're seeing here is that you'll get something called Veteran Push for sanctioned psychers. This allows them to increase veil degradation, which increases a lot of what their powers actually do, or decrease, which makes them less risky. A lot of the modifications are very strong. You can get stuff that will straight up give you more damage as powers go up, which will also enhance with the veil degradation as it goes up and your willpower. But you also have stuff like you'll have veil degradation chance to repeat a random power, or to repeat a power that you've already used, or even just putting on stats so enemies can't even attack you. Like I said, his saves seem to be based on intelligence, his damage seems to be based on willpower. Some of the other things coming in for archetypes, some of the talents that you can pick up on him is stuff like you can increase his distance of his powers, which is pretty good. You can increase his intelligence every time you cast power, will also give him willpower to his defense. He'll have stuff where he can just cleanse allies that have some of his Sanctic abilities stuff on him. And there'll be other stuff that you'll be able to use with, say, the subtle manipulation when he's heroic, so he won't have that being cast in it. But because his attack debuff specialist, he can actually put on a lot of debuffs to enemies as he casts offensive powers if you decide to build into that. So there is a lot that you'll be able to do with Saros. I think he's going to be one of the much more interesting companions, and he's going to work a lot more like a cleric than anything else, but also having some mixed attack stuff coming in as well. He has some stuff with Psyker that allows him to build that way, but I think what's more important is his actual his ability to stun, such as the upgrade to Telekinetic Grasp here, which makes Assail not an attack action, so he can both stun enemies and do other things. And he also has very interesting powers like Telekinetic Dome, which can basically stop damage coming into you. So some of the abilities that we got here, Blaze Weaver works pretty much like Inflame, but also has the Execution of Dots ability, so anything that's burning will just get a sudden proc of damage and it will increase it, which is pretty good. Telekinetic Dome can reduce damage coming in. Telekinetic Barrier is something that has unlimited uses, so you can use it as many times as you have AP to put extra armor to allies and give them damage reduction, or you just have straight up damage increases with stuff like his Molten Beam, which is very powerful. This will do more damage to things that are already burning, so one of the upgrades that you can get to Firestorm increases its size and means it doesn't hurt allies. When we look at some of the stuff that he's got coming in here, some of his stuff for him is attack debuff specialist, so you can get allies bonus skill checks against enemies that are suffering from suppression. When you defend it against enemy attack or it misses, you can put suppression that way, so if you had high defense you can do that. But one of the ones that I really like is feebleness, so suppression and penalty also applies to the damage that this character does, and like I said, suppression is going to really hurt enemies and reduce their morale, so it's another way that you can get even more morale manipulation in there. Some of those other stuff, like ones that I wasn't too much of a fan of, stuff like Ghostly Stride to allow you to move better, that's something that's there and it's okay. But stuff like Immaterial Currents at the start of Mystic's turn, they get +1 AP if Veil Degradation is 12 or more, so you can play risky with the Veil, but it makes them very Idira-like. Implicit Threat, if the Mystic uses a Psychic Power whilst in cover, that target's resistance and tenacity are reduced, so yeah, you're getting direct bonuses there. The Mystic's attack and Psychic Powers deal percentage more damage from further distances away, so that's going to work kind of like Psychic Barrage did previously. Otherworldly Gaze was one that I thought was very good because it increases your range by your willpower bonus, so that's something that can be very, very helpful. There's a little bit stuff for Gish-based builds where your force weapons do willpower percentage more damage, but it's not the best. And at the start of Mystic turn, Veil Degradation is changed, increasing or reduced by an amount equal to the Mystic's morale, so that's something that's pretty cool. Some of the stuff coming in from Pyromancy. If the Psycho is burning, they deal levels of burning percentage more damage with psychic powers. So, yes, the self-immolation builds are back. Burning Blood, whenever the Psycho uses psychic power, all enemies within their influence suffer Veil Degradation divided by 2 damage. The same effect when the Psycho suffers damage from melee attacks, burning, or bleeding. Burning Rage, the Psycho suffers agility reflexes divided by 5+ Veil Degradation divided by 2% less burning damage and deals percentage bonus more damage with the area attacks. So Burning Rage is very good if you're going to be going that self-immolation route. Heart Flame, if the Psych has 5 levels of burning divided by 2 levels of burning or more at the start of the turn, they gain 2 morale and 1 AP, so a bit of morale manipulation. Saturation Flame, at the start of their turn, the Psych gains 1 MP and 1 defense for every burning unit up to a maximum of the current Veil Degradation, so you can possibly get like 15 or so coming in there. You got some stuff that will work for his rhyme here, so if Veil Degradation of 15 higher, rhymes unspoken can be reapplied to spells that were already rhymed by this ability, and this combat doing so increases Veil Degradation by 2. Ode to the Materium, the psychic powers rhymed by the verse Unleashed no longer increase Veil Degradation, instead they reduce it by 2. This one here, Poetic Meter, chance triggering psychic phenomenon or all perils of the warp are reduced by 11% for all psychic abilities used by the sanctioned Pyromancer. Then we've got another one here, so Whispers of the Materium, every upgrade of intelligence, so Law Warp, increases all other intelligence law skills by +5. All other intelligence skill upgrades increases Law Warp by +5, so this is a way that you can get out some other bonuses there. And then if we look at his telekinetic stuff, so telekinetic charge, psychic melee attacks and psychic powers deal willpower bonus divided by 2% more damage for every cell in a straight line between the start and finishing points of their turn. Power accumulation, whenever the psychic uses psychic power, they gain a stackable +5 to intelligence and willpower bonus divided by 2 until their next turn. This one's pretty good. It's one of the ones I like for increasing his saves. Shield of Suffering, whenever the psycho inflicts common negative effect or an assail effect on the enemy, the psycho gains stackable +1 to bonus until their next turn. Telekinetic Echo, whenever the Psycho inflicts a negative effect or uses a sail on a target, the enemy closest to that target that is not assailed must pass a Strength Tenacity test with -10 minus Veil Degradation penalty or become assailed. So the assailed effect here, it won't inflict the stun, but it will give them a stacking negative to reflexes and tenacity, meaning that their chances are that they'll fail more tests is actually increased. Lastly, Unstoppable Force, Psycho deals 3 plus willpower plus int bonus percentage more damage with psych powers and solid protection weapon. So Telekinetic Echo is actually one that's really good if you want to be spreading stuns, but it will only go to targets closest. So I think what's important to get first is Otherworldly Gaze. Then the next talent that you can get in here. Now, you can go with Feebleness, which I think is very good for getting the suppression out and lowering the enemy stats there. Now, you can get... so some of the upgrades in here. So Dome of Entrapment, Psycho creates Telekinetic Dome as before, but what this one does is at the start of Psycho Stone, all enemies within the dome must pass Perception test or become grasped with sim range so it can stop them moving. Dome of Freedom is another interesting one. So all allies inside the dome do not provoke attacks opportunity. Another really good one here is that you can actually get blinded being applied to it as well. So there's a lot of stuff that you will see coming in here that will be very cool. My favorite one so far is Telekinetic Grasp, because this changes your power to be a non-attack action. If we quickly go over the others here. So Imperium Riot, before the Mystic uses their next psychic power, Veil Degradation is decreased by 3, enhancing the effect. This power is guaranteed to trigger Psychic Phenomenal or Perils of the Warp. All characters adjacent to the Mystic must pass Willpower Meld test with Psychic Willpower penalty or suffer Wretched and Disheartened for 1 round. So what that does is the unit's morale cannot be increased. Eye of the Storm, the Veiled Tear will be increased by 3 right before the next side power use, increasing its effect. This side power will also trigger Psychic Phenomenon or Perils of the Warp. Mr. Wearing Light Armor gains armor durability equal to Veil Tear with damage reduction equal to 0. The armor durability does not stack. Firestorm of the Millennia. So this one is kind of a bad upgrade. So the Firestorm is actually a really nice ability that comes with Pyro. So each unit in 2-cell radius around the target cell suffers 2 times Psychic willpower bonus plus failed degradation damage, and must pass an agility reflexes test with a 2 times willpower bonus penalty or suffer Psychics perception levels of burning. Now this upgrade is pretty bad because you can only do it to enemies that are already burning. But Masterful Firestorm makes it a 3-cell sized, and it doesn't affect allies, which is a really good upgrade. So the Flame Embodied, every burning unit in combat has its burning level increased by Psychic willpower bonus plus veil degradation, and then those units immediately suffer an additional instance of burning. So what it changes it to, every burning unit in combat has its burning level increased by willpower bonus divided by 2 plus veil degradation. Then those units immediately suffer an additional instance of burning. So concentration, if the Psyker is burning, they are able to move through enemies. Whenever the burning Psyker uses an ability or ends their turn, all adjacent cells are also ignited. Burning cells. When a unit starts or ends its turn within the area, it must pass an agility reflexes test with -10 penalty or suffer veil degradation levels of burning. So that's something pretty interesting. The Master Cell upgrade changes your distance from 15 cells into a small little cone effect that's only 3 targets long. I don't think this is a very good upgrade. Like I said, Masterful Firestorm, very good here. Shred is the Veiled Tear will be increased by 4 right before the next use of Psychic Power, increasing the effect of this Psychic Power also do 10% additional damage and trigger Psychic Phenomenon or Perils of the Warp. Slow Burn. Every burning unit in combat has its burn level increased by willpower divided by 2 plus failed degradation, and then suffers stackable minus perception bonus penalty to reflexes lasting until the end of combat. All affected units with 20 or more levels of burning also suffer perception bonus MP at the end of their turn. So pretty good stuff coming in here. Now, when it comes to specialization, you get stuff for demoralization. You can get medium armor specialist, but wearing medium armor can actually affect your powers negatively. Sanctic is a very interesting one. So what this does is it gives you God Emperor's Shield. What this actually does is the unit gains willpower plus veil degradation defense and +1 morale, and this can affect allies that are within your influence, as well as giving a lot of other really good effects. So the unique discipline allows a Psychic channel the Emperor's Light to banish, warp, and protect the soul. Psychic gains +5 fellowship, +5 willpower, +10 tenacity, and +10 metal. Additionally, they can use the God Emperor's Shield. So these are quite good, but some of the abilities that you get here, till the start of Sanctic's next turn, if the unit is affected by the God Emperor's Shield or the God Emperor's Crushing Shield, it takes damage to shed evenly among all units with the same effect. So you can sort of spread out damage. Sword of Faith is another interesting one. It gives you extra damage coming in here, but the talents will also be quite good. One of the ones that I really like coming in here is Sacred Smite. Again, I won't go over everything. That's going to be saved for people that have obviously gone in for the sheet on the memberships. But yes, you obviously have a lot of really interesting stuff. You've got modifications that will help with your attack debuffing, so morale manipulation. The Mystic has a lot of very interesting effects that will also change based on some of your abilities here, along with the same with Pyromancy and Sanctic that will work towards it. I'm actually going to grab Sacred Smite because this one will give us extra willpower bonus to damage, so it's a very good one for early game, though whether or not you use that something later game will remain to be seen. So one of the effects that I also really liked here was God Emperor's Palm. All allies affected by the God Emperor's Shield or the God Emperor's Crushing Shield remove 1 random negative effect. So like I said, he can work as a walking cleanse, which is something that's going to be very useful for the encounters I want to show off. For now, I'm just going to go with some Lore Warp to show that off. And what I'll do is I'm going to skip into a combat and just sort of show the sort of stuff that he can do. So Saros tends to come in with some pretty good initiative. If I start off here with God Emperor's Shield, I can remove negative effects that are going up on my allies here, and it will also start by increasing some of their morale. I can also then start to try and get some defense abilities up like Telekinetic Dome, and then I have the choice to either start trying to damage enemies or start trying to debuff them, say Telekinetic Grasp. But for now, I am going to start by spreading some of this Firestorm here. So you want to try and get into the right place. Sometimes a little bit of cover here will kind of dictate where you can put it, but overall we're going to do quite a bit here. Now, as Veil starts to go up, we will have higher chances to actually rhyme abilities, and we'll be able to do some things to enemies. Now, because of the enemies in this encounter have really high morale manipulation, one of my characters somehow ended up broken from one of my own perils coming in here. So this was quite unfortunate that Psychic Phenomena caused that, because a Warp Ghost seemed to decrease -5 morale to allies. So there is a bit of a negative coming in from Psychers as you use them. Now, one of the more useful aspects about being able to set up defensive stuff like this is you can really set up some really good ways to keep morale manipulation up for the team. Now that I don't have to worry too much about what's coming in with the degradation here, we can actually start trying to work out how we're going to take out some more enemies. So if I wanted to start spreading some debuffs, I've got some good ways that I can do that, such as starting with the sail here. We can get off at least a suppression, and then we could try to set off another power, or even move to be able to give some more buffs to allies, or even start by pushing some of the other things here with, say, Blaze Weaver. Now, I'm not going to want to do that just yet, so instead I'm actually going to use this to pass on some psychic powers. And, yeah, we're going to start trying to manipulate some morale to see what we can do with that. Having multiple psychics means that we can really easily stack debuffs across the battlefield. And as you can see, we've managed to build up a way to get off some quite decent effects building up here. And I can actually spread out Emperor Shield to some of my allies to stop some of these debuffs coming in. Now, if I look at the battlefield here, I can see where some enemies are going to be pushing in, and I can start trying to work out where I'm going to be dropping some of these powers. Such as I could go for a Veil push to increase some of my powers, and then drop off a big telekinetic storm style attack up here, which will also build suppression, and it will also build up the burning. Now, I could follow up here, but currently some of my allies are on fire, so I'm probably not going to want to do that just yet. But I can look to see where else I can put in some battlefield control. So I've got one enemy stunned here, one that isn't, and a couple of my allies that could potentially be in trouble. And I could start looking to see where I want to help some people. So I could throw out a stun here, which would prevent this enemy from following up. Or I could possibly hit the one up here as well. For now, I'm not really going to want to go for the Blaze Weave, like I said, until the burning is off this ally. So by spreading some more staggers and these assail effects, I can do quite a bit for the team, but I can also use some of my powers to go up for more wiping of the enemies here. I could even very easily set up to rhyme one of these attacks if I really wanted to. But you have just absolute battlefield domination going on here, and I don't need to worry about not being in cover because the two enemies up top here are currently stunned. Though that Veil degradation might come back around and hurt me. The shield being up here is going to reduce the damage that's coming into allies, and it's going to be quite welcome to do so, especially considering that we're going to have increased defenses to the Veil degradation. Now, Cog is no longer burning because of the effects that was put on by my allies, and now because the team isn't burning, I will be able to start following that Psyker to just start shredding a lot of enemies that are suffering from these burning effects. So we're going to start by manipulating some morale here to start helping out some of our allies. But the intention isn't going to be to go for these allies here to be taking their turns just yet. Actually going to pass a turn over to Saros, because there's going to be a lot more that we'll be able to do with him. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to use one of his power spreads to spread a little bit of burning to, say, this enemy here. And then we're really going to risk it by doing a big old Blaze Weaver at high Veil degradation, which has exploded and summoned a demon. But luckily it summoned the demon near the enemy, not ourselves. So yeah, this blood layer coming in, who seems to be wanting to ignore the enemies and going straight for us. Which I was hoping that he would actually be going through some enemies, not straight in for us. So we managed to stagger that demon, so that's going to be less of a problem. But that enemy's still going to be a whole ass problem. Now, a bit of this morale manipulation is going to be working in our favour. But we got to try and work out how to get through a lot of this demon damage. Woof. Yes, so the blinded effect that we got spreaded around there, yeah, that's going to work in our favour. So, yeah, goodbye, Bloodletter. Yeah, that works pretty nicely with Saros. So Saros is obviously pushing the veil quite high. He managed to spread out some more stuff. I'm actually going to start trying to lower the veil here because it's doing a lot. Some might even say too much. We're going to spread some burning. And then hopefully our next power will lower the veil rather than upset it. So a bit of a risk, but we'll go for it. Fantastic. Spreading out some more debuffs here. So yes, all in all, I find Saros to be a very interesting character. Whilst he isn't being built into weapon skill, ballistic skill at all from his starting archetypes, and obviously his final image remains to be seen, I like the direction they're going with this Mystic archetype. I think it opens a lot of possibilities to support debuffers that we didn't quite have with Rogue Trader. We most only had just pure buffers in it, and the actual debuff aspect was very underwhelming, but being able to throw out stuns that can allow allies to take out some exceptional damage, like you saw again, close to 800 sniper shots because of what he was setting up with the debuffs. Yeah, I've got high hopes for it, and I look forward to seeing more out of this Mystic. Let me know what you're thinking. I know not many people have been following along with Dark Heresy, and I think a majority of people are going to be waiting for beta, but that's all I've got time for today. Till next time, over now, I'll see you all on the next live stream as we continue our priest run.